Okay. Hi. So, TOK 1, moving into the second half of the 9 weeks. Start with some good news. Good news is that we've only got, as long as things stay good now, we've only got 2 more weeks before we're all coming back together in school again. So, that's the positive news here. The positive news here is that we've only got 2 weeks, and then we'll all be coming back to school together again, and hopefully school will get relatively back to normal, and that will actually about coincide with us wrapping up um, the arts. So we might do a couple more things with the arts once we get back, and if nothing else, just to kind of give us some time to get to know each other and do some work together. Because right now I'm still missing almost everything from all of you, and so I'm sure that we can spend at least a little while, maybe catching back up, kind of reviewing some of the things that we looked at, maybe going a bit more in depth about it. But either way, I'm excited for the fact that soon we will be back together, be back to just life in a classroom, teaching, being students as normal. So this week, so week 5 was last week. That was your catch up week. So week 6, that's this week. This week, um, is actually so what you've got 4 different dances to work with here, right? Doon, doon, 3, 4, right? One is a contemporary dance, one is a hip hop dance, one is a paso doble, and one is a Asian hand fan dance. I think it's Chinese, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and then you've got these questions to answer right here. And these questions are right here. And what I would like you to do is I would like you to answer these questions for each dance. I don't need really big, long, involved answers here. I know that, especially, uh, actually, no, only 2 of you have me for English. But, like, I know that oftentimes you guys are used to giving really long and involved answers. I'm not looking for that here. Usually, a couple answers works. Like, did it hold your interest? Yeah, I thought it was really pretty, or it suited the like music well. Boom, that's it, right? That's good. Um, and really, what I want you to do is I want to kind of the idea here is one. So far, we've looked at forms of art that we're already relatively familiar with, right? We've looked at music, we've looked at visual art, we've looked at some poetry. We're going to try and get into some film at some point. We may wait till we get back to school to do that. We'll have to wait and see. But so far, we've stuck to things that we feel relatively comfortable with and that we're already relatively familiar with. Dance is one of those things that, unless you specifically studied it, it's something that maybe is an art form that you're not as familiar with. And so, part of what I want you to explore here is how does this particular form of art work as it relates to the audience? So, arts are all built in the same way that like rhetoric is, right? So you've got the idea. So it's kind of like a triangle, and at the top of the triangle, you've got the idea from the creator, right? Over here, right, you've got the audience, okay, the audience, and then over here, you've got the idea itself and the work itself, and how those 3 things relate to each other. So, how well the author is able to communicate their idea into the work, and then how well that work is able to translate it to the audience, then impacts how well the audience can then relate back to the creator. And I think that we're all relatively familiar with these ideas whenever it comes to things like music, right? Um, because we spend a lot of time in that sphere. I think that whenever it comes to things like dance, we are less nimble at making those connections between the creator and the idea, and then the art. So what I'm trying to stimulate here is some thinking around the ways that different arts forms that maybe we're not as familiar with are still able to communicate these ideas to each other, are still able to work together all right, to transmit something meaningful, whether that's cultural or emotional or narratively or whatever else. So you've got 16 questions to answer for each dance, right? And I would prefer if you submit those as just one big Word document into the assignment here. And I know that sounds like a lot because you're doing the math and you're like, holy crap, that's a lot of questions. But again, a couple words each, and you can answer them as you watch the dance. So the dances are not super long. Each one is probably this one's 5 minutes. Uh, this Ian Eastwood video is 3 minutes. The Paso Doble is like 3 minutes as well, I think. Oh no, it's only a minute and 30 seconds. And then the hand fan dance, I think, is the longest one, and yeah, at 5 minutes. So, I mean, like, these are each only 5 minutes, and I imagine that the questions will probably take maybe 10 minutes per dance to do. So you're looking at, maybe an hour over the course of the week to kind of watch these and do them. I do think that the impact as a whole will be more effective if you at least watched all the dances at the same time, back to back, because your brain's going to kind of do this synthesis thing where it's comparing and it's analyzing them individually, but then also it's going to start taking component pieces from here and component pieces from like here, and kind of building ideas that way. So I would recommend doing it that way. But yeah, once you do that, answer the questions, submit your assignment, and then you've got your weekly discussion thread, which is just after watching these dances, how are you feeling about dance as a form of art? Do you feel like it's as meaningful as other forms of art? Do you think that it is as important? Why do you feel that way? And I think I think that that it's an interesting idea in and of itself, and how we qualify things like importance whenever it comes to art. Yeah, that's kind of all I've got for instructions this week. I don't want to go too much into dance because I really want the reactions of you while answering the questions and experiencing the dances to be authentic. And if I go through and I break down the dances for you ahead of time, it's going to kind of ruin that. It's going to kind of take something away from that. So I'm going to resist the urge to do that. Hold on. All right, so what I decided to do is, rather than go through one of the ones that I want you guys to, is I'll give you an example. So this is Ian Eastwood. He's actually one of the choreographers in one of the other dances. He's a pretty prominent modern choreographer, especially of it's like a blend of kind of contemporary and like hip hop dance. So let's kind of go through this, and I'm going to kind of talk you through how my kind of analysis of this would kind of work.
Unbelievable. This day couldn't get any... What is in my hair? I just need one more... Typical. I should have seen this coming.
Another beautiful day.
So already I know that there's a narrative being built here. That this piece of choreography, that this particular dance is operating around a narrative, is operating around a story. It is being motivated by communicating at least some aspect of this narrative that the rest of the video is kind of setting up for us.
And a beautiful girl. Quick, think of something to say. Girls like clever and funny things, right? You got this. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to Jamba Juice. What can we get started for you today?
I'll do a strawberries wild,
Okay.
but no apple in it
No apple. Alright.
or banana.
No apple, no banana.
Actually, no strawberries either.
Would you like to sub in like any fruit?
No, just no substitutions, just no any of what it comes with.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, is there a way that you can make it like not a smoothie?
Not a smoothie? Well, we do offer freshly squeezed juices. Would you be interested in that?
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll just do strawberries wild.
Strawberries wild.
With no strawberries.
With no strawberries. All right.
Yeah.
I'll start working on it.
Thank you.
Girl, just let your hair down. Let's paint the whole town. Life is our playground, yeah. But
So, now we can start talking about tone a little bit. So we talked about how the role of this is to kind of play within the narrative structure that is being built here, is communicating a story, and then there are other things that are implicit in that. But then tone-wise, we can talk about that as well. So this is what you could be. You could say that, based off of just this opening set
girl,
here, there's a
just
certain,
let your hair down. Let's paint the whole town. Life is our playground, yeah. But
like there's a certain whimsy here. There's a certain casualness or humor to it. So it's functioning within the realm of narrative, but then it's also establishing a lighthearted, very kind of casual tone here. It's not something that looks like it's going to be heart-wrenching or like emotionally disastrous.
I'm not a kid no more, so I must open doors and make you feel like the lady you are. My mama raised me to
So now we see, so from here to
feel
here,
like the
right?
lady you are.
We get this idea of tipping of the like hat and the way that like he like approaches her, and now we're actually communicating like social interaction through this dance choreography, right? So like whether we think about it that way or not, what he's doing is he's taking typical normal social function, right, which are things like tipping a hat as like a greeting, which is something which is long standing, the way that he kind of glances over at her, so on and then so forth. These are normal social interactions that have then been transcribed into the choreography of the dance itself, which then come with its own level of like communication. You could say that this is almost antiquated, the way that he's using the hat, the way that he's tipping his hat and like greeting. These are well established social norms, but they're not what you would call modern social norms. They're almost social norms from a different age, which then might tie into this idea of chivalry is dead, and chivalry kind of being this like outdated idea of how men and women are supposed to interact.
My mama raised me to be classy, not flashy. I'm happy to please you, though I can tell that's not what you're used to. And they say chivalry is dead, dead, dead. Girl, let a real man pick up the slack and treat you with respect. Yeah, and you don't have to love me, love me, love me.
I don't know how to address this particular sequence here without getting into other topics, but you could almost make this akin to the human version of like a bird mating dance, right? Like he's flashing his feathers to try and woo this female specimen of his species. There are some particular movements here that might call to mind certain activities related to that. Also, though, I want to point out that there's also a lot of filler movement here, though. There's a lot of movement here that does not serve the narrative, that is not serving anything besides it just kind of looks good, that it's just meant to be aesthetically pleasing. And that's not a bad thing, it just is a thing, right? As where I think that there are some dances that if you look at every movement serves an intentional purpose, as we're here I don't know that that's the case. I think that some of these are just aesthetic moves meant to be nice looking and maybe serve the music.
You don't have to love me, love me, love me. Just 'cause I'm a gentleman don't mean I ain't taking you to bed.
So there also is a lot of convergence between the lyrical aspect of this song and then the movement of the dance as well. So while it is serving the narrative that's being established in this video, it's also serving it's also serving the narrative of the song as well. So this line, it doesn't mean that I'm not taking you to bed, and then he gives the little sleepy sign, right? So like he's also serving not just kind of the emotional resonance and the whimsy of the song, but also the lyrical content as well. So sometimes whenever you get into dances of set to specific songs, the dance very much is serving the musical quality, but not necessarily the lyrical quality. And here it looks like the choreography is striving to serve both.
Oh, baby, let me buy your meals. I see you head over heels. I feel like you deserve it. There's no pressure. We can do whatever makes you comfortable. Yeah, I could float your boat. It's cold, take my coat. I'll sing the music note from the song that I just wrote. Girl, just take my hand and let me be a man. Though that's not what you're used to. And they say.
So there's actually a lot to break down with that little sequence there, and mainly, and this is where your prior knowledge of dance is going to come in handy. So the earlier parts of the song are very built into kind of modern hip-hop movements, and this section here with the partner is actually a throwback to several swing movements, particularly in the June Bug, this little fast flip
I sing
movement
the
section
music
that they get
note
into.
from the song that I just wrote. Girl, just take my hand and
Where'd it
let
go?
me be a man.
Where's this section with the fast flip movement? That is very swing-esque. And then there's even a little bit of kind of ballroom-esque with the way that the movements are working in tandem with each other, almost a little bit like a samba, but there's less hip movement. And again, this is the kind of analysis that you can get into. See, and then that's that ballroom. That is actually a tango drop there with the dip. And so this kind of analysis I wouldn't expect you guys to be able to do, because I don't know how familiar you're going to be with dance or not, but it is interesting to see him go from this kind of modern hip hop and contemporary movement set to more jazz and ballroom oriented movements in the middle of a song that is about throwback romance and a throwback to kind of the way that men and women used to interact with this idea of chivalry is dead. And now we're also seeing how the movements and the dancing is now serving this narrative as well, right? Which is that now they're coming together, so on and so forth.
Let a real man pick up the slack and treat you with respect. Yeah, and you don't have to love me, love me, love me. You don't have to love me, love me, love me. Just 'cause I'm a gentleman don't mean I ain't taking you.
This is a form of dance called tutting, what they're doing with their hands here, which is actually something that evolved out of the breakdance movement back in the 80s.
And you don't have to love me, love me, love me. You don't have to love me, love me, love me. Just 'cause I'm a gentleman don't mean I ain't taking you to bed, bed.
Strawberries Wild.
I think I do like strawberries.
Another beautiful day.
So, I could talk more about the elements of popping and locking that are thrown in here, along with so. Ian Westwood does this thing where he combines popping and locking along with jazz foot movements, which is really, really interesting. And you could talk about the blending of those elements, and again, the idea of chivalry and this callback to an earlier time and the way that he uses jazz foot movements. And now I can talk about whether or not I think that this successfully communicated the narrative. That I think that there's a little bit of a jump between the success of this relationship development. I don't know that the dance fully communicated that. I guess that he was able to dance for her enough to successfully woo her. I thought that it was a fun dance. It definitely had a certain degree of whimsy that then, though, transfers into this section. Is still a little whimsical, right? But but it becomes a lot more sentimental
And they say
towards the end of their section together, right? So it goes from being kind of lighthearted and whimsical to much more romantic, right? And to very sentimental here, right? This is still lighthearted and like whimsical, but it's not as lighthearted and whimsical as it was earlier. Now we're getting into something a bit more serious and a bit more emotionally grounded here. So yeah, so that's kind of the way that I would watch one of these videos and kind of how I would go through most of these questions. And you know, most of the questions that I ask you to answer in this, I kind of answered in the process of watching this, and then I would just have to go back and just type them down, right? I guess maybe I didn't cover a lesson or a moral. You know, I mean, there's probably a moral there if you really want to talk about it. You could talk about the idea of like kindness being a way to really start off a like relationship, that maybe chivalry isn't dead. You know, there are some things there. You know, and then we talked about the tone and the whimsy and the narrative there. Did I have an emotional reaction? Not really. I thought it was nice. I had more of an aesthetic reaction than an emotional one. So yeah. All right. So yeah. So that's that. That's all I got for this week. Please watch these 4 dances, answer the questions, and submit by the end of the week. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a good one. Please, if you can, try and make up some of the work that we're missing here, so that way we can catch up, so that way it's not just a mad dash at the end of the 9 weeks. Because what's going to happen is we're going to be coming back in the building. So we're on week 6 now. That's 7. That's 8. So we're going to be coming back in the building right at the end of the 9 weeks. And it's not going to be fun for you to be coming back in at the end of the 9 weeks, and you're going to want to do all this makeup work, and I'm going to be ready to have class. Like, I'm going to be ready to go back into having, like, regular classroom instruction time, not let you sit in a desk all day and do makeup work because you didn't do any work for 9 weeks. So please try and get caught up before we get back into the school building. All right? That's that. As always, if you need anything, email me. I'm more than happy to help. Thanks.